Good morning, brethren, and welcome to our bi-weekly program entitled The Word in a Glimpse, which is broadcast live on Facebook every Monday and every Wednesday at 8 a.m. West Africa time, which is 7 a.m. GMT. Today is Wednesday, the 10th of January 2024, and our topic is the continuation of the topic that we started on Monday, and which is entitled From Manna to the Produce of the Land. So today is part 2. We apologize for starting 3 minutes late today because of some technical problems, but we are already in. So let's start by reading the two passages that we read on Monday. The first one is Exodus chapter 16, verse 37. Let's read it again. Exodus chapter 16, verse 37. Let's read. And the children of Israel ate manna 40 years until they came to an inhabited land. They ate manna until they came to the border of the land of Canaan. Let's read again. And the children of Israel ate manna 40 years until they came to an inhabited land. They ate manna until they came to the border of the land of Canaan. And the second text is Joshua chapter 5, verses 11 and 12. Joshua chapter 5, verses 11 and 12. Let's read. And they ate of the produce of the land on the day after the Passover, unleavened bread and parched grain on the very same day. Then the manna ceased on the day after they had eaten the produce of the land. And the children of Israel no longer had manna, but they ate the food of the land of Canaan that year. Let's read again. And they ate of the produce of the land on the day after the Passover, unleavened bread and parched grain on the very same day. Then the manna ceased on the day after they had eaten the produce of the land, and the children of Israel no longer had manna, but they ate the food of the land of Canaan that year. Okay, so you see, as we said on Monday, when the children of Israel went out of Egypt to go to the promised land, which is Canaan, they just took a very little quantity of provisions. Of course, they couldn't take provisions for 40 years. It was not possible. They took provisions maybe for 3 or 4 days or 5, maybe. Anyway, less than 1 week provisions. So we're on the way to Canaan. All that food was completely finished. They cried out to Moses, who cried out to the Lord, which means that the children of Israel cried out to the Lord because they didn't want to die of hunger. And God gave them food. The food that God gave them was manna. That food was meant to feed them during the journey between Egypt and Canaan, from Egypt to Canaan. But the children of Israel thought that manna would last forever, that they will be eating manna because it required no effort at all. So as we pointed out on Monday, the 8th of January, the children of Israel lived on manna for 40 years. They only ate manna for 40 years. They only ate manna. Manna was what they all knew as food. There was no other food that they knew apart from manna, especially those who went into Canaan. So those who entered Canaan, with the exception of Joshua and Caleb, who knew something else apart from manna, because they were the only ones who went out of Egypt and entered Canaan. So the children of Israel never expected manna to cease. They thought that they would continue eating manna throughout their entire life. They thought that manna would be their food forever. They were deeply convinced that the manna blessing was an everlasting blessing. They thought that it was an everlasting blessing for them, that they would be eating it forever. Yet, all of a sudden, they discovered that manna was not an everlasting blessing, but just a temporary blessing. So as soon as they ate of the produce of the land, of the produce of the land of Canaan, this brought an end to the supply of manna for the children of Israel. So God told them from the beginning, from the very beginning, God told them that He will take them to a beautiful country flowing with milk and honey. That country was, of course, Canaan. On the way to that country, that beautiful country flowing with milk and honey, He fed them with manna, since there was no way that they could produce their own food. They were in the wilderness. They were in the desert. Nothing grows in the wilderness. Thus, it normally should have been clear to them that manna was only meant to feed them while they were in the wilderness on the way to Canaan. Which means that when they arrive in the land of Canaan, where they would be able to produce food by their own action. So only when they arrived in Canaan that they could be able to produce food. So normally it would have been clear to them that manna was temporary, yet they didn't think it. They were thinking that manna was an everlasting food for them, an everlasting blessing. So this is why manna ceased on the day after they had eaten the produce of the land, the produce of Canaan. God was making them understand that the time has come for them to move from a temporary blessing to a more lasting one. God wants us not to remain in temporary blessings. God doesn't want us to remain in transitional blessings, because manna was just a transitional blessing. God wants us to move from provisional to long-lasting blessings. Let's now read Isaiah 37. Isaiah 37, verse 30. Isaiah 37, verse 30. Isaiah 37, verse 30. This shall be a sign to you. You shall eat this year such as grows of itself, and the second year what springs from the same. Also in the third year sow and reap, plant vineyards and eat the fruit of them. You see, more lasting blessings require more effort than provisional blessing. The blessing of the produce of the land requires more effort than manna blessing. And the effort that is required for a long-lasting blessing, this effort is gradual. This effort is for a ladder-like blessing. You start on the first step of the ladder and you move forth, you move on until you reach the last step of the ladder. So in fact, God's blessings in our lives are generally gradual. They are comprised of four main levels. The very first level, which we can call the ground level or level 0, is that of the manna blessing. It is the blessing that we receive passively without any effort. This is the kind of blessing that we only receive because we are in a given place at a given time, at a given moment. And that blessing comes to us. If, for example, God spreads blessing in your on your house or on your household, everybody living in that house or being a member of your household will equally benefit from that same blessing without doing anything. Just benefit from it. That is ground blessing. That is manna blessing. So that is level 0 blessing or ground blessing or manna blessing. So the second level of blessing now is the very first level of the blessing of the produce of the land. This is the ask and it will be given to you blessing. So this is level 1 blessing. Manna blessing is level 0 blessing. And manna blessing is level 0 blessing or ground blessing, which is passive, which is effortless blessing. But the blessing of the produce of the land is active blessing, which requires prior action or effort. And this blessing of the produce of the land starts with the ask and it will be given to you blessing. You see, when the children of Israel reached Canaan, maybe or more certainly, they picked the wheat that has fallen on the ground after the farmers had harvested their crops. But then they had to clean the grains to remove sand, to remove any other impurities that were mixed with the grains. Then they also had to parch some of the grains and grind the rest, grind or ponder the rest of the grains in order to get flour. And next, mix that flour with water and oil to make dough, and finally bake that dough into bread. So they had to put on some effort. This was the level 1 blessing in the land of Canaan. Now, the second level of the blessing of the produce of the land is the give, and it will be given to you. You see, the passage that we read in the book of Isaiah said that on the first year, they will eat what they gather from the ground, what grows on itself. So nobody made any effort, any great effort for it, but they will do the effort of picking it, grinding it, and baking it. But now, in the second year, they will eat what will spring from the grain that they have got in the first year, which means that while they were picking the grains from the ground, they had to leave some of the grains so that those grains could produce wheat. So you see, when you just got the grain from the ground and you eat everything that was on the ground, nothing else will grow again. So they had to give something to the ground. They had to give some of the grains to the ground so that the ground could produce something. So when they first arrived in Canaan in the first year, they ate what they were gathering from the ground or from wild crops, which no one had sown and no one has harvested. Yet they didn't pick all the grains. They left some of the grains on the ground. In other ways, they gave some of the grains to the ground, to the soil, to the earth. So they gave some of the grain to the ground so that the ground could produce something for them for the next year. And the ground eventually produced the wheat of which the children of Israel ate in the second year. So this is the give, and it will be given to you blessing. Now, not only are you to ask for you to receive, ask and it will be given to you, but here now it is give and it will be given to you. So you have to put more effort. After you have received something, you put the effort of giving before putting on the effort of collecting, of gathering, of harvesting. This is it. So in the second year, the children of Israel ate what sprang from the grains that the children of Israel gave to the ground. They gave to the ground, and the ground gave them wheat for bread. So if you don't give, you will not harvest. This is the law of sowing and harvesting. You have to sow in order to harvest. Many Christians just stop at the first level of blessings. Ask and it shall be given to you. But that one will not bless you enough. And it will not lead you any farther. You have to go to the second level, which is give and it shall be given to you. Because when you receive God's blessing, you have to spread that blessing to others. You have to become yourself a source of blessing for other people. This is what will help you continue receiving God's blessings also. Now, that is not all. The third level of the blessing of the produce of the land is now the blessing of to him who overcomes, I will give to eat. As we read in the book of Revelations, to him who overcomes, I will give to eat. So I will give blessings to him who overcomes. How can you overcome if you don't fight? So you have to fight. You have to encounter an obstacle on your way. You have to encounter adversity. You have to encounter opposition. Then you fight against that opposition. You fight against that obstacle. You fight against that adversity and you overcome. And when you overcome it, now then God will give you blessings. Those blessings. So those are to him who overcomes, I will give to it blessings. Which means that you have to fight for your blessings. And the greater the victory, the bigger the blessing in your life. When you fight, when your fight is great, when your fight is big, the more you fight, the greater your victory, the bigger will also be your blessing. This is the third level of blessings. You see, in the third year, as we read in the book of Isaiah, chapter 37, verse 30, in the third year, the children of Israel had to sow. In order to sow, they first had to prepare the land. They had to do more, to make more efforts for them to have the harvest that will help them eat during the third year. So they had to sow. They had to fight against the ground. They had to fight against time. They had to fight against the environment in order for them to get the food of the third year. So you see, brethren, in your life, you might be meeting or you might be having 4 levels of blessings. The first level is the manna blessing, which is just temporary, which is just provisional, which is to help you go further and have more blessings. Then the second blessing, so that first blessing, the manna blessing, is the blessing that you receive passively, only because you find yourself in a given place at a given time. The second level, which is level 1 blessing, because the manna blessing is ground blessing or level 0 blessing. Now, level 1 blessing is the blessing that you receive because you have asked. Ask and it shall be given to you. Then the second level of blessing is the blessings that you receive because you yourself, you have first given what you had. You give what you have, and in return, you receive more than what you have given. This is the second level this is level 2 of blessing. Then level 3 is when you overcome oppositions. You fight for your blessings, you overcome oppositions, you overcome adversity, and you get blessings. And generally, you get much more blessings. Dear brethren, do all to move from manna blessing to the produce of the land blessing. God bless you abundantly beyond all your expectations.